Welcome back to the Conscience of Kansas with Paul A. Ibbetson on the Wildcat 91.9.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Conscience of Kansas radio program. My name is Paul A. Ibbetson, and you're listening to the dynamic summer lineup of the program. And today, in the second half of the program, we have another very interesting guest to bring you in Marc Rudov. Marc Rudov is an internationally recognized author and radio and TV personality with expertise in women's and men's rights. Marc appears every Friday on Fox News Channel on Your World with Neil Cavuto and the O'Reilly Factor. Rudov says what men think but are too chicken to utter. His two books, The Man's No-Nonsense Guide to Women, How to Succeed in Romance on Planet Earth, and Under the Clitoral Hood, How to Crank Her Engine Without Cash, Booze, or Jumper Cable, are two dynamic books he has out right now. Marc Rudov would like to welcome you to the Conscience of Kansas radio program.
Great to be here, Paul.
Well, you know, it's our pleasure to have you on the program. I've been following your stuff for quite a while on Fox News, where you're just kind of a regular guest there, right, and listening to your dynamic commentary. Could you tell our Conscience of Kansas listeners a little bit about you and your two very interesting books?
Certainly, and I certainly would like to welcome all the soldiers at Fort Riley who might be listening too, because it's very important for guys not just in college but in the military to hear what I have to say. Essentially, men have given away their manhood in the United States, and that's why I call this country a gynocracy. It's run with the female agenda, and most politicians are gynocrats, meaning that they only care about women.
Okay.
And an example of that is on Father's Day, Barack Obama made a speech where he castigated men for being irresponsible because of the number of fatherless homes in the country. But not once did he say anything about women. Women are part of the equation. Women get themselves pregnant, and a lot of women are getting pregnant just to get the cash, and he never said anything about that. And that's a problem. And the reason that politicians only care about women is because men don't make it known that it should be any other way. What I'm trying to do is teach men some very basic things. Men make two basic mistakes in this country, and I have T-shirts and coffee mugs because of it. The one thing they do wrong is that they recruit merchant marine, and that's M-A-U-R-E-E-N-S. A merchant marine is a woman who drops her anchor into your wallet with your consent. She's the entitled princess who expects to be wined and dined. Well, she can't be wined and dined unless the man goes along with it. And I wrote a book, the second book that you mentioned, Under the Clitoral Hood, which teaches men that women, contrary to what we're all taught as children, women are more sexual than we are. And we don't have to pay for it. We don't have to scheme for it. We don't have to kowtow for it. We don't. Unfortunately, most men don't know this. That's exactly what they do. The second thing that men do wrong is that they elect gynocrats. If you have a guy like Joe Biden out of Delaware or Lugar out of Indiana who's pushing the Violence Against Women Act, which is a totally unconstitutional law, totally unconstitutional. The reason these guys keep getting reelected is because men reelect them. They're talking about Joe Biden as being a potential running mate for Barack Obama.
Yeah.
And we talk about all his foreign policy credentials, but nobody on TV ever says, by the way, did you know that Joe Biden is the biggest man-hater in the United States Senate? Well, how did he get in there, and how does he stay there? Because men keep voting. When you go out and you talk to men, you find out that most of them don't even care about themselves. Whenever there's a problem, they just go back to drinking beer, watching NASCAR, playing Xbox. They don't care. And so that's the problem. So men are recruiting merchant marines, and they are electing gynocrats, and that is allowing the women to take over the country. A lot of men want to blame the feminists for this, but men are doing it. Men are allowing it to happen. Men are just saying, I'm going to be an ostrich, I'm going to have my head in the sand, and I'm just going to pretend that all of this stuff that's happening isn't really happening when in fact it is. So what I'm all about is teaching men, and the reason I'm the no-nonsense man is I define nonsense as that double standard where a woman is a capitalist at work. She loves it when the money's coming in. That's when she believes in equality. But when the money's going out, such as in a date, she doesn't like that so much. She's a socialist in her social life. So I'm telling men to stop that. Don't tolerate it. You don't have to.
Wow.
And I believe in equality between men and women, but I believe in real equality, not fake equality, where women say, I'll take some of this, I'll take some of that, but I don't want any of this, I don't want any responsibilities. So, again, if you look at what happened at Duke University,
yes,
where Crystal Gayle Mangum falsely accused men of rape, and she's now walking free.
Right.
Well, why does that happen? Why is there a rape shield law? Why do women who falsely accuse men of rape go free? Because men let them.
Right.
So men have to start looking in the mirror and start growing a pair and becoming men. And one of the things I said on Cavuto is the typical American man built like a Ken doll, smooth between the legs. He doesn't have anything there. And it all comes down to tears, tantrums, and sex. He'll do anything to avoid her tears and tantrums and anything to get sex. And that is it in a nutless shell. Men aren't men.
That's very...
No matter what politician it is, how many politicians have stood up and said, there will not be another Crystal Gale Mangum on my watch?
Mm-hmm.
You've never heard it.
Right.
How about when the girls up in Gloucester, Massachusetts, made a pact to get pregnant?
Yeah.
Which male politician, like Barack Obama, stood up and said, you girls should be ashamed of yourselves?
Right.
In New Hampshire, they did a study, and they found that 30% of the babies born are extramarital babies. So women are cheating on their husbands, having babies, and the husbands don't even know it. How many times has Barack Obama said, shame on you?
Right.
It will never happen in our lifetime.
Right.
And it goes on and on. You have Jamie Lynn Spears, the little kid sister of Britney Spears, 17 years old, saying, oh, I'm going to be a soccer mom.
Yeah.
She should be ashamed of herself.
Yeah.
But who says that? Who says you should be ashamed of yourself? No. Only people who should be ashamed of themselves are men. That's what politicians do. You men should take responsibility. So you attach responsibility to men and benefits to women. Now, given that most legislators and judges are men are doing this. So if you have a woman who's draining your checkbook, it's not her fault. It's your fault. You're tolerating. In a nutshell, Paul, that's what I'm all about. I'm trying to teach men to be men. Stop kowtowing to women. Stop thinking that they're better human beings, that they belong on pedestals. They have to be treated like delicate little flowers. Don't forget, one Hillary Clinton wanted to become commander of the U.S. Marines. That's not a job for a delicate little flower.
Right. Absolutely.
Men need to grow up and realize that 42% of women outnumber men by 42% in college graduation. So 42% more girls than boys will graduate from college.
Right.
Okay? It's getting to be a little problem here, and men are ignoring it. And in a university, which I call gynoversities because it's all about women, I've tried to go to college campuses to teach men. You referred to my article about keeping your son safe at college. Tried to go to universities to speak to men about how to avoid false rape accusations. How many universities wanted to have me? 0.
Wow.
Why? Because how dare you talk about anything but women.
Right.
I tried to contact the upper echelon of the fraternity organizations at the national level. Let me come to speak to fraternities, teach men how to avoid false rape accusations. How many wanted me to come in? 0. I called athletic directors, football coaches, 0. If you're even seen as slightly dissing women, you're out. The women have taken over. It is definitely a feminist-run country. And men are doing nothing about it. Nothing. Now, at the typical college, and I didn't check KSU's website extensively, but at the typical college, guy in college can go out with a girl on a date and they can have sex. And 2 weeks later, she can decide, you know what, now that I think about it, that wasn't consensual sex, that was rape. Now, if he's on the football team and the football coach hears that he's been accused of rape, he's off the team and out of school, no questions asked. We don't want to hear your story. Why is all of this happening?
Right.
Because men are sitting there saying, boo. They're not fighting back. Dear, yes, dear, yes, dear. That's what it's all about.
Well, Mark, I can validate some of that from the law enforcement standpoint. I'm a former Kansas chief of police.
Oh, well, wow.
And, we dealt a lot with the issue of rape and rape allegations. And one of the things I found that you've talked about is that when you have false reports and they are validated as absolutely a false report,
right.
When our department, I would submit every one of those cases as charges against the first alleged victim for filing a false report. And we could never get district attorneys to go forward with those charges.
Of course not. Do you think a district attorney wants to have his face in the paper as a misogynist?
Yeah.
Nope. He doesn't care about whether a man is treated justly. He cares about his image.
Absolutely.
And that's why a district attorney will hear every case, every rape allegation, because he doesn't want an article in the paper with his face named to it. John Smith, district attorney,